myself to the stream. I'm incompetent at streaming before I've had coffee. Hello, everyone. I know this is an early morning stream. I didn't expect it to be this early, but Hunter Avalon just booted me off of his stream for blatantly disrupting his logic. But we have important business to talk about today. So I'm going to give people a couple minutes to kind of file in. We'll make some small talk. How's everyone doing in the chat? I'm doing great. I'm back on Twitter. I had an epiphany last night about all the people calling me an anti-Semite. Which, by the way, if you think that I take people calling me an anti-Semite any more seriously than I take people calling me a racist, I got a bridge to sell you. But I had an epiphany about it, and we're going to talk about it because today I'm very excited. I'm very excited to launch the Anti-Semitism Challenge. Oh, it's shit like this that leads people to psychologically diagnose me on the internet, but I don't care. I don't care. Hip-Hop618 says, I'm Jewish. You're definitely not anti-Semite because of your Hitler comment. The leftists on the other... Dude, isn't it the truth? Listen, this whole thing started off as conservatives canceling me, and then leftists and Vosh's audience got involved. I didn't experience the leftists yesterday. I've been experiencing the leftists all morning on Twitter. Holy hell, these people are insane. And isn't it insane? Is the thing that really puzzles me is like how these people on one hand can claim to be the arbiters of what is and is not anti-Semitism, and then on the other advocate for bombing Israel off the face of the map. I'm a fan of Israel. I respect Israel's right to exist. How in the world, in these people's brains, am I more anti-Semitic than people who want to bomb Israel off the face of the map? So we're going to talk about this. So listen, here's the thing. I've alluded to this stuff sometimes on my channel, maybe, about how I don't pay attention to the words that people say at all. Because people lie all the time. They lie all the time. Sometimes they lie consciously. Sometimes they actually believe the lies that they're telling, and you can only tell that they're lying based on their actions. They say one thing, and then they do a completely different thing. Let me give you an example of this that I think many of us can relate to. God knows I can. I say, I want to lose weight. I want to lose weight. I'm committed to losing weight. I can see myself as thinner. I can see myself fitting into those pants that I fit into pre-pandemic. But then I don't go to the gym and I order pizza at night and I eat ice cream secretly when no one's watching. I'm not saying I do that. I actually don't. But like I do order pizza at night. I do that. I don't do the ice cream thing. But like, what if I say, and I'm like, and I'm really sorry, I want to lose weight more than anything in the world. I have tried everything to lose weight, except I don't go to the gym and I eat really badly. Which is true. Do I want to lose weight? Or do I not want to lose weight and continue to eat like a teenager? Your actions will always tell you more about what people's real intent and real motivation is than the words that ever come out of your mouth. People lie all the time. Lots of times they're even lying to themselves. And that leads me to the Anti-Semitism Challenge. Okay, let me share my screen. Because it occurred to me last night as, you know, this might be hypocritical, but I hold leftist Twitter to completely different standards than conservative Twitter. Because leftist Twitter, they're like fundamentally unhinged from reality. Conservative Twitter should damn well fucking know better. So I do hold them to different standards. And the fact of the matter is, the people who started calling me an anti Semite on Twitter, they were not leftists. The leftists jumped in on the brigade after the fact. It was conservative blue checks on Twitter, like this jackass with his little list. Or I don't even know if he's a conservative, but he's definitely like not a fucking leftist, so far as I can tell. But it's people like this who have run around for the past 24 hours calling me an anti-Semite. Siraj. I don't know what it's like. You guys probably know more about this guy than I do. I have no idea. But he's not the only one I'm talking about. We're going to talk about a few blue checks on Twitter. So, but he started this, pulled something out of context, misinterpreted it, and used it because he wanted likes and clicks on Twitter. Now, here is the thing. I, back a while ago, wrote this here article. The backlash to critical race theory is here, where they're trying to co-opt the anti-CRT movement. We're going to watch some stuff from this article today because not everyone may remember this, but what happened was back in June, I kind of feel like this is like a nice culmination of everything. Back in June, I got attacked and brigaded for weeks relentlessly by actual white identitarians and actual anti-Semites. And I started talking about it because, to be quite frank, it was a really traumatic experience. And as a thank you for talking about it, I got canceled by conservatives in the worst possible canceling the worst canceling that I've ever experienced ever. And I kind of put all this stuff on the back burner then. I kind of put it all on the back burner because, to be quite frank, it was really, really bad. It was really bad. Not only did I have actual really bad people coming at me, I also had conservative blue checks getting off on bringing the entire fucking conservative Twitter sphere down on my head, lying about me, writing smear pieces, going back through my Instagram and pulling photos out of context. It was just the most ridiculous thing that's ever happened. Okay? But a couple months later, I, along with one other person, did a whole bunch of research on this on this group, on this white identitarian group that are overtly anti-Semitic. And we're going to talk about how they're anti-Semitic in this stream. They are overtly anti-Semitic. They do not believe the Holocaust exists. Some of them, teachers in schools that teach children that the Holocaust never happened. One of the people we're going to talk about actually quit his job as a public school teacher because he taught public school in the state of Arizona, and the state of Arizona mandated teaching the Holocaust, and he quit his job as a public school teacher because of it so that he could go and start his own school where he teaches white children that the Holocaust never happened. That's all documented in this article. We're going to talk about it. Now, the reason I documented this was because I figured out that these idiots were going into the anti-CRT groups on Facebook to try to recruit people into their movement. It's all documented. Does it sound crazy? Well, is it really crazy to think that a group of like white identitarians who are filled with hate and anger and fear would utilize an audience of parents who are scared and don't know what's going on and don't understand CRT and all this stuff as well as many of us do? Is it really that far-fetched to think that they might see this as a fertile recruiting ground for them? They're so slick in how they do it. They don't talk about what they actually believe. They ease people into it. So I figured out that these idiots were going onto Facebook and recruiting people, and I ended up documenting all of it. All of it. In painstaking detail. This article is very long. We're going to look at it. And there is overt anti-Semitism in this article. Up and down, overt anti-Semites, conservative media lifted up overt anti-Semites, put them on their platform, documented all of it. When I shared this article, not one single conservative blue check shared it. Now, it got hundreds of thousands of views because it got into the parents groups on Facebook and the parents shared it, which is what I really wanted to begin with. But I do think if we're talking about the difference between words and actions, not one single conservative blue check shared this information. Not one single conservative blue check thought that their audience might want to know that very bad people are recruiting in the groups that they're in. So, if I have a group of conservatives that claim to, and again, I'm holding conservatives to a completely different standard than I hold leftists. Sorry, it's not fair. Life isn't fair. Leftists are fundamentally unhinged from reality. There's no talking to them. It's not the point. But if I have a group of conservatives that have dished up to them on a silver platter, here are overt examples of anti-Semitism that conservative media is lifting up. That Blake Masters, Senate candidate in Arizona, is lifting up. That Lauren Witzke is lifting up. And you don't share that? And you don't call them out for anti-Semitism? You don't have a fucking leg to stand on. I am sorry. Do not run around calling people anti-Semites when you have actual cases of anti-Semitism served up onto you on a silver fucking platter and you do nothing about it. So, we're going to talk about this article, but before we get into that, I do want to talk about the anti-Semitism challenge, because now that I have been dragged up and down Twitter for believing that every single person who ever lived chooses when they die, that apparently makes me an anti-Semite for believing that every single person who has ever lived, will ever live, chooses when they die before they're born. It's a spiritual path thing. It's apparently anti-Semitism for me to believe that hell isn't a real place and therefore Hitler didn't go there. Those things are so wrong and so bad that I have the worst take on Twitter ever. But not a single one of these blue checks did anything. Nothing. When they were presented with examples of actual anti-Semitism. Not a single thing. So, Siraj, I made your little list, huh? How much do you care about actual anti-Semitism? How much do you care? How important to you with your Jewish wife? How important to you is anti-Semitism really? Or are you just trying to feed people's outrage addictions? Or is the only reason that you're known on Twitter is that you're feeding people's outrage addictions? Choose. Because you spent the last day attacking me for saying that I believe that every single human being that has ever lived and will ever live chooses their path before they're born. And you say that's anti-Semitic. But when presented with examples of actual anti-Semitism, you didn't do a goddamn thing. So the anti-Semitism challenge is essentially, I want to see how many conservative blue checks share this information. We're going to talk about the article. It's a little old, but it's still very true. Came out in September. Not a single blue check has shared it since then that I'm aware of. I want to know how many conservative blue checks are so concerned about anti-Semitism that they share actual anti-Semitism. And we're going to look at what the anti-Semitism looks like. Dragon Water says because. Thank you, Dragon Water. I appreciate that. I want to challenge all conservative blue checks who called me an anti-Semite to share actual examples of anti-Semitism. I'm going to bet you they don't do it. And this goes back to what I said at the beginning. You can always tell what people's real priorities are based on their actions, not based on their words. People lie all the time. Look at their actions. If someone claims to care about anti-Semitism and then they are served up actual examples of anti-Semitism in their sphere. And they do nothing about it. Then does anyone actually think that they care about anti-Semitism? I was served up examples of anti-Semitism by accident. I kicked the hornet's nest of this group by accident and then went down the rabbit hole and discovered what they really were. When I discovered what they really were, I did something about it. I spent weeks doing something about it. I spent weeks researching this. I spent weeks watching overtly racist and overtly anti-Semitic content to make sure I could illustrate it clearly for everyone in this article what this group was doing. I did something about it. I didn't just complain on Twitter. I gave everyone a document that they could actually read and understand, that they could share with their friends, that they could use to identify who the bad people were in the groups that they were in. I did something about it. You, Siraj, who claim to care about this stuff, who hold up your Jewish wife and say, I can't possibly not care about this. I'm married to a Jew. You claim to do something about it, and yet you're more interested in calling me an anti-Semite than you are in calling out actual anti-Semites. So let's see if he shares it. Let's see where Siraj's priorities really are. But Siraj isn't like the only person. It's not the only person. I also had this guy, Jason Bedrick. We're actually gonna have to change this over because Jason blocked me on Twitter. He blocked me after I called him out, and I'm gonna show you guys what happened. So I had to look in a different window. And I'm sure there are other blue checks involved too. So we have this guy, Jason. Jason looks very Jewish, right? Obviously a school choice person, director of policy at Ed Choice. Seems to be doing stuff with school choice, looks very Jewish. Does Jason care about anti-Semitism? Jason, let's see if we can click in. Oh, did he delete? Fucker deleted it. Deleted it. Hang on. I can go back and... Okay, essentially he called me insane. He called me insane, which we're going to see. So I retweeted Jason after he was one of the people who was dragging me on Twitter, this conservative blue check Jewish school choice advocate dragging me on Twitter, calling me insane. I tweeted, I challenged Jason to take the anti-Semitism challenge. Here I have an article detailing actual anti-Semites that I spent weeks researching. People that don't believe the Holocaust happened. Will Jason put money where his mouth is? Jason responded, I didn't call you an anti-Semite. I called you a lunatic, and I don't share things from lunatics. Now, I know you all know that I have the deepest respect and admiration for people who make psychological diagnoses based on Twitter. I have the deepest respect and admiration for people who I have never spoken to in real life, have never talked to, has never asked me questions, has never asked for an offline conversation. I have the deepest respect and admiration for their psychological diagnosis of me. Typically, people who make psychological diagnosis on Twitter have deeply impressive counseling backgrounds. Not really. Typically, people who make psychological diagnoses on Twitter have a wealth of experience in the mental health realm. Not really. But they're more than happy to ridicule you, which I'm sure if they're so deeply concerned for your mental health and well-being, as many people seem to be lately, on Twitter anyway, they're so deeply concerned that they ridicule you and lie about you and smear you and call you a lunatic on Twitter with their blue check. But will they ever share information about really bad people that's been documented painstakingly, that there is no question about what's going on? No. And then they say, well, I can't do it. You're a lunatic. Does that sound crazy to anyone else? Does it sound crazy to anyone else to psychologically diagnose someone you have never spoken to via tweets and then say, I care, I'm so Jewish, I am such a good Jew that I care so much about anti Semitism that I refuse to expose actual anti Semites. Does that sound sane to anyone else? You know, Joshua tells me all the time that my job is to expose people by holding up a mirror to who they really are. It's sometimes not the most fun thing in the world to do, I'm gonna be honest. But that's a mirror, man. Looks like a Jew, probably talks like a Jew, probably has Shabbat dinner. Calls people lunatics on Twitter and refuses to expose anti-Semitic comments. Okay, okay. So I wanna show you guys the article. I want to show you guys the article. Oh yeah, Mikey apparently JB, do you know how I said yesterday in the middle of my 2-hour stream that I commented on Mikey Harlow for like 10 minutes and that he was going to do a video and that he was going to say Carlin made a whole video about me. He tweeted that like within 2 hours of that video. He tweeted Carlin made a whole video about me. I was like, dude. Like I'm scared about Mikey Harlow making a video about me like I'm scared of a hole in the head. Honestly. All right. I want to show you guys the article though, and I want to show you guys what I'm actually talking about when I say anti-Semitism. And I have to do this in a different screen because we need to listen to sound. We're going to listen to some sound this morning. And listen, guys, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be honest. Like the things that we're going to look at are not going to be pleasant to watch and they're not going to be pleasant to hear. But I do want to show you an example of what every single person who is calling me an anti Semite up and down Twitter refuses to share, with their audience. We're not going to go read the whole article. I have a whole other stream in which I've read the article before. This stuff is hard to watch. I know because I watched it for weeks. But this is an article. Basically, what happened is there is a movement. It's called the White Wellbeing Movement or the White Positivity Movement, in which they are a highly organized network they're not doing it so much anymore, but they were really doing it quite a bit. They were trying to infiltrate the anti-CRT groups that parents are going in to try to recruit people into their white well-being movement. Now, if you've ever seen any video that I've done telling people do not say the term anti-white, that's because the term anti-white comes from these people. It comes from people who are leading a white well-being movement, a white positivity movement. It is literally in their literature. One of their stated goals is to get the term anti-white adopted in common culture. It's to get people like Tucker Carlson saying anti-white. It's to get people like Senate candidate Blake Masters to say anti-white. That it's that specific term. If you say racism against white people, that does not have the same meaning as saying anti-white. These are very literal dog whistles. If like 80% of the time when I see someone using the term anti-white, it's one of these people. It's one of these people. They are completely fine with judging people based on the color of their skin, and they are overtly anti-Semitic. And we're going to look at examples of them being overtly anti-Semitic. So that is what this article is about. You can find this article at carlin.substack.com. And it's pinned right at the top. I'm actually going to put it in the chat. I'm going to put the URL in the chat. Hang on. I'm just putting it in the chat so I can pin it to the top. This is the link to the article. We're not going to go through the whole thing. If you would like to read it, you can. But we are going to watch some videos and we are going to talk about some of the stuff that's in it because I want to illustrate what this group is doing that conservative blue checks on Twitter who call me an anti-Semite refuse to share. It's not that they didn't know about this. It's that they refuse to share it. So this guy right here, does anyone remember this guy right here? His name was Daniel Concannon. He wrote a letter of resignation back in June that ended up all over conservative media. I'll even show you, well, I can't show you this. So he wrote a letter of resignation all in conservative media where he used the term anti-white all throughout this letter. All throughout this letter. And it was specifically designed to get him on things like Tucker Carlson and Laura Ingraham so that he could use this language to try to get more people to adopt it. This was a specific tactic. The group of people that we're going to look at is highly, highly, highly organized. And we're going to see that. I'm going to illustrate that. They have whole communication teams designed around getting their message into pop culture. So let's see. We're just going to scroll through some stuff. So essentially what we discovered was that they were posting in the anti-CRT groups on Facebook. And let's start with this kind of introductory video. So here is where they're going to talk about specifically. So we've got this guy, Daniel Concannon, who was a conservative darling all over conservative media, all over Tucker Carlson. We have this guy right here, this blonde, kind of like Mike Pence wannabe guy. He is the teacher that literally we're going to hear talking about how he doesn't believe that the Holocaust happened, and he teaches children that the Holocaust didn't happen. And then you've got this guy right here that's like our mystery guy that's like hosting the whole conversation. So let's just start with this video, and we can kind of start to get a sense of who these people are and exactly what they're doing that conservative blue checks don't want you to hear.
So this is really beautiful, the direction this is going. This is one of the purpose of this show really is to not just dwell and be reactionary. Brant was very good in explaining that we're heading towards solutions. So we don't want to just come on here and complain and waste your time. We all know what's going on. It's about figuring out, how do we handle this? How do we move forward? And, you know, what I'm promoting is that our people in the white positive movement somehow get into, I don't know if infiltrate's the word, but I want to say that go on social media, get involved specifically on Facebook with these anti-CRT groups and start dropping our media, dropping our message, getting the word out, challenging people. Do it politely, do it rationally, be an adult. If you're representing the white positive movement, be positive. It's okay to be human, get angry and make a joke or this or that, but try to realize that, you know, a lot of these people that we're dealing with, they have zero background in politics. They know even less about our movement, the white positive movement, etc. And so they're really just babes in the woods, and they'll eat up anything they're told. And they come into this movement with white guilt already ensconced into them, like through all the indoctrination that we have. So you better believe that, you know, the forces that be are going to want to corral these whites and allies of whites, people of color who support whites in Western civilization, and make them think it's not about whites. You know, it's not, you know, hence the title of the show, Critical Race Theory is Anti-White. And so we have to start strategizing these things. And part of it is psychological. Part of it is just facts and data and knowing how to talk to people. There's all kinds of people, but you have to realize that, you know, mom and dad from, you know, anywhere America, they see their kids going to school, they see this CRT garbage in school, and they're forced out of their homes. They're forced out of their complacency to take time out of their day to protect their children. Yet they're entering a battle that they have the slightest idea what they're up against. The enemy has all the dialectic. They have all the media. They can dazzle, razzle, dazzle, and like knock our people down. When I say our people, I mean people who are trying to fight for the rights of whites, white sovereignty, etc. So we need to co-opt that movement. The anti-CRT movement is, in a way, our movement. It should be anyway, in that sense. So, because we're the true leaders in this movement and what's going on in terms of racial identity politics for whites. So that's why I had this show. And, you know, when more topics like this come up in the news, I'll invite you both back. Of course, we'll talk more about it.
So that's what we're talking about. This group of white positivity people, who, again, I'm going to illustrate very clearly are overtly anti-Semitic, we're actively trying to attempt to co-opt the anti-CRT movement. We're actively recruiting from the anti-CRT movement. And conservative blue checks on Twitter care so much about fighting against the woke, and they care so much about anti-Semitism that they refuse to share it. Reagan says they don't like the source it comes from, me, but that is not the point. Awareness about something is still awareness. I mean, listen, I'm going to say that if people really cared about anti-Semitism, then the fact that they don't like the person who brought forth the information should actually probably take a back seat. I don't like a lot of people. I don't like a lot of people. We don't all have to be best friends. But do you care more about hating me, or do you care more about anti-Semitism? Choose. If you care more about hating me, then I can't really assess that you care about anti-Semitism at all. Not in any way. That makes no sense. Let's keep going. So the guy I really want to introduce you to is that, again, that blonde Mike Pence wannabe. He runs something called the School of the West, which is all about a homeschool program for white children to promote white well-being. It's a real thing. Look at, they have categories. They teach history and culture and science and math and white well-being. Huh. One of the reasons that Brandt is was a public school teacher in Arizona. He was a public school teacher in Arizona. And he left teaching in public schools because Arizona mandated teaching the Holocaust, which Brandt thinks is an example of anti-whiteness. Let's listen.
Where I was teaching last, there was anti-white material seeping in at a lot of levels, but it wasn't overt yet. And in my state, in Arizona, the governor outlawed teaching CRT in schools in the state of Arizona. Now, I'd be surprised if all the teachers adhered to that, because some teachers are going to try and push that through anyway. At the same time, there's a certain event that supposedly happened at some point in the past that has to be taught in Arizona starting next year.
Holocaust.
So on one hand, they're getting rid of the anti-whiteness, and on the other hand, they're bringing it in. I think we know which event I'm talking about there.
Holocaust.
So I didn't have to deal with it directly, but I'll try and wrap it up here. As I said before, when I was, I think, on your show, maybe in February, some of the history lessons and social studies lessons I was teaching when I was in the 5th grade, I would read something to the kids and then realize, well, as a teacher, you know, you scan ahead, you put it in your RAM, and then you speak. And so I put this stuff into my head and I said, I'm about to say a lie here. So I preface this by saying, okay, kids, I'm going to read you something now. This is not true, but this is what the book says. And this goes back to lessons that we had before. You're going to hear things. Is it true or false? Is this fact or opinion? How do you know that what your teacher is telling you is true? How do you know that what you see on TV or the internet or a book is true? Right now, as you're a kid, you've got to accept this because you don't have any other choice. But you're going to come to a point where you grow up, you're going to have to find these things out for yourself. And as you know, as we all know, once you gain the trust of students in a classroom, they're going to trust you come hell or high water. You know, I can say something to the kids and they can look it up on the internet and I'll say, you know, oh, the internet is wrong. Because, you know, Mr. So-and-so just said it's the other thing.
So he literally is talking there about teaching children in schools that the Holocaust didn't happen. And that's considered to be less problematic by conservative blue checks on Twitter than me saying that I believe that everyone who has ever been born chooses how they're going to die before they die. Does anyone see a problem with this? Twin Tail says, I still can't believe you got canceled because of different spiritual beliefs. The right needs to know that religious intolerance hurts more than it helps. I wouldn't even mind being canceled so much for my spiritual beliefs if they would actually share information about actual anti-Semitism. Because you're using the improper definition of anti-white. I guess I'm stupid because I don't see how teaching about the Holocaust is anti-white. The term anti-white does not mean what you think it means. That's why. That's why. Yeah, Caleb says, like, so a lot of people have said, Carlin, those tweets, they made you look so bad. Like, you took it out of context, dude. You took it out of context. You are an adult. You were fully capable of going to my timeline and seeing the context. Caleb, who's like not that old, I don't think, Caleb, correct me if I'm wrong, was able to make his way to my timeline and says the context was in the quoted tweets thread. People need to stop being outraged so quickly, despite not agreeing. I read all the tweets and understood what Carlin was saying. It's like not actually that hard if you wanted to understand the context. The problem is that these people are more addicted to outrage than anything else. Outrage will always win. It will always win. I have been canceled by the conservative right like 5 or 6 times in the last year. The left is getting in on it too. The left are just silly though. It is always worse to be canceled by the right than the left. I'll take being canceled by the left like any day. They're ridiculous. They're ridiculous. I'm literally getting death threats right now from people on the right. I got one this morning. Going in my email this morning. I'm going to have to call the cops later, have a whole conversation. That's always fun. But that's literally happening right now because of conservative blue fucking checks who refuse to do anything other than create outrage on Twitter. Let's keep going. This is a part where Donald discusses overhearing his teacher talking about a certain hoax that exists in World War II history, and Brandt laughs. Let's listen to a little bit more Holocaust denial that conservative blue checks on Twitter refuse to share.
So let's look at another one of Brandt's points. Outright lies being printed in textbooks and novels that are assigned for kids to read. I look at my son's work. I talk to my son frequently about school. Last year when he had to stay home, and do the school online thing, I happened to be bringing some lunch to him, and I overheard his teacher talking about a certain hoax that exists in the World War II history. And I was walking in, and I heard this right at that moment. And it was this kind of emotional outpouring, and tears, crocodile tears, and all this. And I'm like, what's going on in here? I just like walked in on it. I was off screen, and my son looked away from the screen for a second to see me. I'm doing the thumbs down to him, and she like harps on him immediately.
Yeah, so Boris, you are correct that these people are not on the right. And we're going to see later in this article, to protect conservatives and to protect the right, I wrote this article in a very, very specific way to give them all the cover that they needed to say, these people do not represent us. I'm going to illustrate that later in the article because you are absolutely right. These are not people on the right. They do not consider themselves to be conservative. I'm going to illustrate that later. But my point is, again, I was so careful about how I put this piece together to help the right be comfortable sharing needed information out there to families. I gave them all the cover they needed, and they still didn't do it. Why? Because people like Siraj don't actually care about anti-Semitism. They don't actually care about it. They don't care about it. All they care about is outrage. I gave them all the cover they needed. They still didn't do it. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that. All right, moving on. Here's the part where they talk about promoting the School of the West, that white well-being school, in anti-CRT groups on Facebook.
I've been, with my sort of trolling in the anti-critical race theory movement on Facebook, I often will post your link to say, hey, look, an alternative to CRT. And then people click on it, and you can imagine.
So I want to reiterate what they just said. These anti-Semites are actually promoting this white well-being school curriculum as an alternative to CRT in anti-CRT Facebook groups. That's what he just said. Think about that for a second. Let's listen.
Imagine, now in that sort of social media zone, you've got a lot of people like us who maybe they don't have our background or they don't understand the movement, but they support that, and they'll like it quietly, but they won't comment. And I'll get lots and lots and lots of likes, but then a few comments of, oh no, it's this and that's not that, and it's not white, and then jumping through hoops and all the bend over backwards stuff. So it's, yes, we have to sort of keep going with building our parallel movement. This is a prime area. I think it's the sort of, how do I say this? The anti-CRT movement, I think, is the best place to kind of show our movement, to present our movement, to present our cause, to start bringing our data into that dialogue and demonstrating to people CRT is just one tentacle of this giant monster that is causing white genocide around the planet. And who are the people that have designed this and are funding it? And then, kind of slowly break it all down. So yes, you're going to find that there are those that no matter what data you show them, they're just going to, deny. They're kind of basically mental, they're like the imbeciles essentially. But I just got into a discussion, let's say a discussion with a woman about that. And, point after point, I was just like smashing her to pieces with, no, here's the data, here's the data, here's the data, race and IQ, DNA, civilization, history. I mean, on and on and on. And she just refused to admit it all. And at the end, she was like, I'm not going to change your mind. And I said, that's fine, honey, because I just changed the mind of all the people that were watching this discussion. So that's what's up. That's what's going on.
They say it blatantly. They don't hide it. And I was canceled back in June by conservatives for saying exactly this thing was happening. Ian Miles Chung yesterday tweeted out that someone needs to perform a mental wellness check on me. Back in June, I blocked Ian Miles Chung because he sided with these people. He promoted these people. He used them to attack me back in June. And he thinks that I should take his idea that I need a wellness check seriously. I have laid all this out in painstaking detail to prove that everything I said was 100% correct. And you can go do your own research if you don't believe me. Like, this is all public. This is like, these people do everything in public. You can go research it. Fact check. Go check it out yourselves. But this is what conservative blue checks do. Reagan says it's almost like they're more interested in keeping a problem around. No need for fixing it once it's exposed, right? Likes and clicks reign supreme. That is exactly right. I have never gotten one single apology, not one single apology from any of the conservative influencers who attacked me for likes and clicks after I put this out that proved that every single thing I said was 100% correct. Not a single apology. And I won't ever get an apology. And I know that. But there Ian Miles Chung was yesterday tweeting about how he's concerned that I need a wellness check. Okay. Let's keep going. Let's watch some more video. So here you can see this is all their little posts in the anti-CRT groups. And one of the things that I want to point out, Don Jackson, this guy who is the same as that bloody face guy in the video. That's the same person. Okay. So here, I'll go back a little bit.
Teacher talking.
Like this guy here, when you see these Don Jackson, that's the same person. Okay. So look what he's posting in the anti-CRT groups. Critical race theory as a Jewish intellectual weapon. That sounds a little anti-Semitic. Look at this. Communism, a Jewish creation. CRT, greater than Marxism, greater than Zionism. The New World Order is Zionism. When you get to the end of the rabbit hole and you see who is really designing the destruction of Western civilization, forced immigration, LGBT agenda, vaccine, big pharma, big tech. It all points to one global elite who believe that they are the chosen people. Does that sound a little anti-Semitic to anyone else? It sounds very anti-Semitic to me. Remember, the word for non-Jew in Hebrew is cattle. Why does 50% of U.S. Congress members have dual citizenship in Israel? Microsoft main office is in Israel with backdoor to every PC on Earth. Bill Gates, Fauci, Henry Kissinger, Zuckerberg, Soros, etc., etc., etc. That's what anti-Semitism looks like. That's what anti-Semitism looks like. It doesn't look like me saying on Twitter that I believe that everyone as a spiritual being chooses the time that they die. And yes, that includes people who were murdered, and that includes babies who were aborted, and that includes people in the Holocaust, includes everyone. That's not an anti-Semitic statement. This is anti-Semitism. Yet, who are conservative influencers more interested in dragging on Twitter? Are they interested in dragging this and exposing these people that were actually recruiting in anti-CRT groups, that were actively getting parents to join their movement by posting this shit on Facebook? Or are they interested in dragging me, who says, I don't believe that people ever really die. I don't believe there's a hell. And I believe that people choose their path when they're here. Does that sound a little bit bizarre to everyone else? I'm the anti-Semite? Please. Please. This is the other thing, and we're not going to listen to this song, but this guy, Don, he actually has on his BitChute channel a song that is a cover of Imagine, in which he is imagining a world without the Jews. Imagine all our people living the Western way. Western means white. Reimagine our own country not controlled by Jews. Lands to kill or die for our own religion too. Imagine all our people living life, that should be life, in peace. I may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. Hope someday for Imperium and the white diaspora will be as one. That is from a cover that this idiot wrote of the song Imagine. Those are the actual lyrics. You can go on BitChute and listen to it. I'm not going to link to it. I'm not going to play it. But you can find it. It's all in color. It's all in public. But me saying that I think that people have a spiritual path that they choose before they're born is anti-Semitism, but this isn't worthy of calling anti-Semitism? Okay. Okay, conservative blue checks who feign outrage over things that they don't really care about, even though they're married to Jews, Siraj. Okay, let's keep going. Enter Daniel Kincannon. Daniel is a good foot soldier in the movement. When he resigned from his position as a site coordinator in Manchester, New Hampshire School District for their mandated training, he did so with the specific intent of pushing the term anti-white into the mainstream. Now, here's where you're going to start hearing them specifically talk about how their goal is to get people in the mainstream to use the term anti-white, which is in itself an anti-Semitic term if we're focusing on anti-Semitism today. We were focusing on critical race theory last time we talked about this. Now we're focusing on anti-Semitism. So the term anti-white is an overtly anti-Semitic term. They believe that the Jews are anti-white. They believe that anything that supports the Jews or Israel is anti-white. They believe that the Holocaust, teaching the Holocaust, is anti-white. So anytime you hear them use the term anti-white, understand that it is an overtly anti-Semitic term. Let's listen.
We need to be in every lane. We need to be in every lane possible of this. Political, cultural, arts, even just I'm working with what I have. Like, I set out to take the word anti-white and put it into as many ears and in front of as many eyes as I can. I'll go anywhere I can to run my mouth and tell the truth. Like, this is the instrument I got on me right now.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm working with.
Right.
And I'll yell and scream from the rooftops. We'll tap into American history, and I'll ride around like Paul Revere screaming about the anti-whites that are coming, because they're coming, and it's scary for people that refuse to see it. But yeah, no.
all ride around like Paul Revere and scream that the anti-whites are coming. They mean the Jews. That's what they mean. Now, this is a clip that's kind of like a little bit. So I'm just gonna go through and play all the clips, guys. Some of them have to do directly with what we're talking about. Some of them don't, but you're here, so we might as well review the material that we took a long time to put together. So in this clip, you're gonna hear about how they do not like conservatives. I've said, and again, I told you guys already, I gave conservatives every bit of cover that I could possibly give them to be able to say these people are not conservative, these people do not represent us, and they still wouldn't share it. They care so much about anti-Semitism that they refuse to share it, even though I gave them every single cover that they could. So in this video, what you're going to hear is them talking about the conservative reservation. They do not consider themselves to be conservative, and they have absolute and total disgust for anyone that believes in the words of Martin Luther King.
Right.
The only thing I'll say, I'll speak to one point that's peculiar, and anybody who's kind of on our side of things, I think, is eminently aware of this, but this is a point that needs to be reinforced for people that are more mainstream and people that are caught in that conservative on that reservation and handcuffed by their narratives.
Mm-hmm.
So like, when Tucker covered me, it was just funny to see my face on the screen and have him describe me as an admirer of MLK. And then when I was on Laura Ingram's show, it was funny because right before it ended, her line, she quoted Martin Luther King Jr. before I, kind of was off of the screen. And
look at Brandt's
I didn't
face.
have, there was no, my part was already over. So I didn't get to open my mouth again. But just the preoccupation, the obsession that the so-called right has with invoking the name of Martin Luther King Jr. Like he's not, like he wasn't a bridge to critical race theory.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
We're talking about the hand puppet of the communist Stanley Levison. Yeah. But every time we want to defend ourselves, we must invoke his name. Oh, it's rough.
So they're not conservatives, and they do not believe in Martin Luther King. In this clip, I also don't think we're going to watch this one. So in this clip, it's basically, I showed them ragging on Chris Rufo, right? They do not like Chris Rufo at all, not in any way. Because Rufo totally rejects these people. Rufo understands what these people are doing. He and I have talked about it. Like he completely rejects these people. So this clip is basically just them ragging on Chris Rufo. So we're not going to watch that. I wanted to demonstrate with that clip that these are not people that are on the anti-CRT team. These are not people who are on our team. These are people who are actively attacking people like Chris Rufo and James Lindsay and me and all of these things. They are not on our team at all. Naruto says anti-white is what the Klan called MLK. Don't use a Klan word. That's exactly right. Naruto understands. We all have to be responsible for our own language. All right, now we're going to get into this guy. This guy is Jason Cohn. Okay? This guy's real bad. This guy's real bad. This guy has been in the white positivity or white well-being space for something like 30 effing years. Over 20 years at least. What he's done is he's created an entire manifesto, an entire movement. This guy is the leader of this movement, and we're going to start to hear from him. And this is when you guys should really, frankly, be freaking out.
Well, Daniel, I know it's a lot to condense, but if you could just give us the overview, a couple of minutes of what it was like to publish your resignation and have the attention of big mainstream media. Just catch people up on that, and then I know we'll have some questions from the chat in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, so end of June, school year wrapped up, and I officially published my letter of resignation, calling out what it was, mocking these losers for what they did, mocking the entire situation, telling them in direct terms, F you, I wanted to set a tone. I wanted to set an example that it's not about being reasonable with people that hate you. It's about fighting back. It's about standing your ground. It's about pushing back against these people. So I sent that out. I attached a bunch of materials to it. I kind of attached just to give context to everything because I knew, maybe there'd be some media buzz about it. I didn't know how far it would go or how fast. And it went far and it went fast. In very short order, there was, major cable news reaching out and contacting me. I ended up on a couple of news cycles, a couple of appearances on the cable networks. A lot of national press, very significant level press publications, a lot of local stuff, New Hampshire based stuff. It put pressure, fortunately, and that's part of what I set out to do, was to raise awareness about what's going on. The fact that this is in Manchester School District where I worked, a lot of people didn't know about it. Heck, I didn't know about it until they foisted it upon me. But it's there, it's everywhere. So yeah, it went big, it went fast, it got a lot of eyes on it, and it went. I couldn't help. It exceeded what I hoped, and I almost thought with the resignation letter that I crafted that it may be self-limiting because of the mockery and kind of the sardonic nature of it. But fortunately, that proved to really not be true. People grabbed it. It spun out. The verbiage of anti-white, which is the most important thing, the language war and what we need to call this, and making anti-white be ubiquitous. I forget critical race theory, forget any of it. Just call it all what it is, call it anti-white. But I was deeply pleased. I'm proud to have gotten those words in front of so many eyeballs and into so many people's ears.
So what he's saying there is he was deeply proud to spread the anti-white message, which is an overtly anti-Semitic message, which was picked up all over conservative media and used all by conservative blue checks on Twitter, even though they were hearing from people like me that this is not good. All of them knew it. And instead of, they cared so much about anti-Semitism that instead of changing their language and not using overtly anti-Semitic words, they attacked me instead. But I'm the anti-Semite. Okay. Boris says, the thing I like about your channel is that you expose both the so-called right and left propagandists. The truth is that that they're the same evil, just rebranding themselves as something new when it's the trash. Yup. I agree. Listen, I started this journey when I woke up from the left and I was in search of the truth. Now, at that time, the right was actually much more sane than I see the right being today. So it seemed like I had this group of people on the right that were welcoming and that believed in a big tent and diverse set of ideas. And now I'm being canceled for having different spiritual beliefs than they do. Think about how far the right has sunk in a year, in less than a year. That they went from being big tent and everyone's welcome here to canceling people who have different beliefs than they do and calling them anti-Semites and refusing to share actual anti-Semitic information. Refusing to do any of that. Let's keep going. All right, now we're going to start to meet Jason. And Jason is obsessed with getting the conservative right to adopt the term anti-white. He is obsessed with this. He does streams about this several times a week. His audience is deeply coordinated. He preaches this relentlessly. And so this is the guy who is leading this entire deeply. He also, by the way, which I'll prove a little bit later, he has ties to David Duke and actual neo-Nazis. And conservative influencers refuse to talk about this, but they'll drag me as being an anti-Semite. Okay, let's hear from Jason.
Every time you see the lexicon and dialectics being used by people, ordinary Westmen, men, women, and children
Westman is white.
of our race, everywhere you see that being used by them, the vagues out there, everywhere you see it being used in the regime's media, everywhere you see it being used in alternative media, whether it be alternative media that is somewhat friendly to those who care about white well-being, to somewhat white sympathetic, all the way to radically anti-white media online, alternative media online. Every time you see that, it is because of us. And I cannot tell you the surreal environment that I live in on a daily basis after pushing something for far more than 2 decades now. I'm not going to give away my real age, but for far more than 2 decades, I have been pushing anti-white, anti-whiteism, Western kind, white well-being. And we have continued to reach new levels of the usage around planet Earth. And all of you now who have been with us either for weeks or months or years or a decade, however long you've been with us, pushing the same thing because you had the foresight to see this is what will change the world we live in. Because if you can change the societal conversation, you change that milieu, you change that matrix in which everything has to take place. Every conversation by every water cooler, every conversation by every lathe, every conversation by every front loader, every conversation in every board meeting, every conversation in every hall of government then has to take place through that medium. And then also, what can come out of that? The culture of us as heroes, the culture of us in our own story, the culture of us using our lexicon and our dialectics to revivify our people, to create a people out of a deracinated race. That, my friends, is the success that we see on a daily basis. It is a living dream come true.
If you think that conservative blue check influencers are unaware of this guy, I hate to burst your bubble, but I've gotten a bunch of DMs over the past several months from conservative blue check influencers talking about this guy specifically. They know about him. They just refuse to talk about him because they are more interested in creating outrage mobs to go after people like me who call them out on their bullshit than they are in actually fighting actual racism and actual anti-Semitism. Let's keep going. This is Jason talking about cuck-servatives. This was, again, to demonstrate that he's not a conservative. He does not consider himself to be a conservative. He considers himself to be a completely different thing. Let's watch.
In the work that we are doing in the service to white well-being and the work everywhere else you go when it comes to the white positive sphere, cuck-servatives, nationalists, whatever it might be, they all live inside of the anti-white narrative, and therefore they can never win. They do not know this.
You can see him coming in the
Trust
chat.
because I have
They're starting to come in my
conversations with
chat.
these folks, and they are as dim-witted as a mule. They want to talk politics. They want to talk all of these superficial things that have nothing to do with the fundamental differences and changes that we have to make in this world, which begin in the hearts and minds of our people and then branch out so that when we do get to an opportunity to take advantage of new developments in our contexts, we will be situated to take advantage of those developments, and we will also be immunized against what the anti-whites can do to us even once we start to regain our destiny. Because rest assured, just because some group of white people somewhere suddenly throws up a new flag or an old flag or whatever it might be, rest assured that they are not going to be resistant or resilient to what anti-whites can do to them, to fracture them, to sectarianize them, to turn them against each other, to turn them against themselves. You need to be immunized by going free if you are going to survive what the anti-whites can throw at us. So it's not going to be this same old basic nationalism, bitch nationalism that's been beaten. the bitch conservatism that's been beaten, the bitch patriotism that's been beaten, the bitch religiosity that's been beaten, all of it been beaten by the anti-whites. None of it will suffice. All of it can be added to. All of it can be ancillary to the very surgical, fundamental work that we are doing here.
So I want to point out, Hoodoo Guru says, so this is what you mean by white identitarians. This is extreme far right. No, it's not. This is not the far right. And again, I actually genuinely do mean that. I'm not just trying to give conservatives coverage so they actually talk about this shit. They are not on the right. They do not consider themselves to be on the right. They are a third thing. Google third positionism. They do not consider themselves to be part of the left-right paradigm at all. They're not alt-right. They're not far right. Let's keep going. Gentleman Warfighter. So what is this? Are we looking at people who are detailing the fight against CRT? So what we're looking at are actual anti-Semites who conservative blue checks refuse to talk about because they're too busy dragging me on Twitter and calling me an anti-Semite for saying that I have a different spiritual belief system than them. That's what we're talking about. But yeah, these guys were trying to infiltrate the anti-CRT movement. I think they're not really much anymore because I ruined it for them. Now, one thing I want to point out, and more evidence that these are not far right people, is they're collectivists. They're collectivists. Who else are collectivists? The woke left. These are collectivists. They do not believe in individualism, as Jason will tell you right now.
And we will ask, and we will answer. Johnny Reb, $5 financial gift. Thank you, brother. Anti-whites have no fear of the abstractionists and individualism of conservatives. Absolutely correct. Thank you for making that's a fantastic point, Johnny Reb. I want you to think about that. If you consider yourself a conservative, you're hearing us for the first time. Anti-whites, now these are the anti-whites who call themselves Marxists, Democrats, etc. They have no fear of abstractions and the radical individualism of conservatives. Whites were steadily more victimized during the 35 years Rush Limbaugh preached individualism and abstractions. Precisely. Radical individualism, folks, is suicide in a world of collectivism. I want you all to replay that 10,000 times, what I just said. If you're a conservative, say it to yourself 10,000 times, and it will finally land that, oh my God, what I've been told intentionally undermined me and everything that I care about.
They're not individualists. They're collectivists. Just like the woke left. I hear anti-white all over the place now. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. The reason that you hear anti-white all over the place is that conservative influencers have adopted this language because of the tactics that this guy implemented. And they're so driven by their own egos that they refuse to acknowledge evidence of who these people are and what they're doing because they don't like my haircut and they don't like that I call them out on their bullshit. I put this information together to get it specifically to parents who are in these anti-CRT groups on Facebook so that they would stop falling for these people. And we're going to talk about how they're actually recruiting. I'm going to give you examples of it. But conservative blue check influencers could have shared this. If conservative blue check influencers actually cared about anti-Semitism as much as they pretend to care about anti-Semitism, Siraj, if they actually cared about it, they would actually be sharing this information. Here's a video where Jason is specifically responding to me because I baited him on social media over the course of several weeks. And he's specifically responding to me, and he's going to talk about how he does not believe in a colorblind society. Let's listen. Even individualism. They do not believe in a colorblind society.
Precisely. And we're going to discuss that MP maybe today, or maybe I'll just say it right now.
I said they don't believe in a colorblind society. Jason responds, precisely.
No, I don't know. A colorblind society, or being colorblind, is a code word for white erasure. It's a code word for no white people. It's a code word for anti-whiteism. That's what colorblind society means. There are no white people. Why? Do you know that? Well, because the people who say colorblind society are the same people who are advocating for the well-being of Black people, and good that should be done, and the well-being of Jews, and that should be done, and the well-being of Hispanics, that should be done. At the same time, while they're saying colorblind society and advocating for the well-being, the enrichment, the empowerment of all these non-white groups, when white people say, okay, colorblind society, and let's protect ourselves, Nazi, they immediately scream. That is what colorblind society means. You do not hear colorblind society in the anti-white organizations that are radically advancing all of the success that they are having as anti-whites throughout the totality of the West. The only place where you hear this meme pathogen pushed endlessly is in the pen where they trap white people. You have to be colorblind, and you have to demonstrate how not racist you are for the totality of your life. Racist. How you demonstrate it by villainy signaling, by way of saying things like colorblind. You're not going to endorse a group of people practice that wants to put an end to the victimization of white people. And in refutation of that practice, you'll say, no, you are for a colorblind society. But then you will turn right around and you will say, yep, it's good that this harm that's being done to non-white children is being arrested, that we'll put an end to it. Where can I send my check? Sickening.
Hoodoo Guru says they use the anti-white a lot, apparently. That's because that is their number one term. Their goal, their only mission is to get people to say the term anti-white. This is why I will block anyone on this channel that uses this term. I have warned people many, many times, and I will continue to warn people, and you won't get blocked on your first offense. You'll get a warning. But if you come on my channel and say things like CRT is anti-white, you will get blocked, because their mission in life is to spread the use of this term, because in spreading the use of this term, it helps them to recruit. And I've given everyone all the information I can to understand this. And if people are still going to pretend that they don't, then I don't know what to say. Caleb says, I also think it has something to do with you being a woman. They're so used to women on the right being susceptible to their bullying and name calling. It won't work on you, though. I think you're right on both counts, Caleb. I don't play the woman card often, but I do not think that they would treat me the way they have if I was a man. I'm sorry, I don't. I know that makes conservatives uncomfortable, but I think it's the truth. I think it absolutely has to do with me being a woman, and they believe that they can bully me, and they can believe that they can get me to delete my account and shut up. Fuck them. Fuck them. All right, let's keep going. We got a couple more to watch. I mean, it's like 1 o'clock. Like, usually there's low viewership at this time, so I'm not that worried about that. All right, so here's where they're going to talk about how they're actually recruiting. Because again, one of the things I want you to understand is that if we're talking about anti-Semitism today, and we are, if we're talking about anti-Semitism, the term anti-white is specifically an anti-Semitic term. They use it they've already used it in anti-Semitic ways in the course of this video. We've already shown that. We've already demonstrated that. They're going into online communities to try to get people to use the term anti-white, and conservatives are falling for it. Let's listen to how they're doing it.
We have done this. We are the ones responsible for this change. We are the ones responsible for normal, ordinary white people around planet Earth taking up a dialogue in their own defense, because it has the moral backbone. It has the moral structure. We are the ones who did this. Who else is responsible for this? You know who else? Yiz is. Take a look at this. Yiz writes to me, another great success in the cluster I've been influencing. In a Discord chat about movies and video games, a discussion about racial ethnic displacement of white people characters started. And one of the people who has been paying attention to me engaged to speak the truth about anti-whiteism. He even used the terms erasure and anti-whiteism correctly. This person is not, all caps, repeat, not, all caps, someone I have personally coached. This is a guy I barely know, but who has been listening to me and other content creators I have been influencing. Get a raucous round of emojis for Yiz and everybody like Yiz out there. Punch the air. Celebrate today. Set off fireworks. These are people taking up verbiage that enables white people to defend themselves everywhere they are without ever reading any of our so-called white sympathetic philosophers or political thinkers or any of that nonsense.
You know, it's funny that you're saying that I should listen to Keith Woods based on to learn what third positionism is, because I'm pretty sure Keith Woods is actually going to make an appearance in this article. He's definitely involved with this group. I know exactly who Keith Woods is. He's involved with this group. This group likes him. So I'm pretty sure he's actually going to make an appearance as we keep going through the clips. So I understand what I'm talking about here. Again, spent weeks on this. Let's keep going. More with Yiz recruiting.
First Amendment, Second Amendment, constitutional rights people, anti-white, even politicians and the like, using anti-white, saying that they're not anti-white. You never got them to say this kind of stuff before, and you never will, being a troglodytic jackass in your backwater nonsense in every one of these fetid pools around the internet, who want to blame and smear and shame and smear and say, you're not purity spiraling well enough into Aunt Nat Nitwittery. What you need to be doing is holding rallies where a bunch of men shout racial epithets. That will make the day come when we recapture our destiny. BS. You're never going to speak to those people. You're never going to march in any streets and control any cities. You are a fool if you think otherwise. We are changing the world. And people like Yiz, she is at the forefront of that. And if you don't like it, it's because you are a loser. Outdo her if you don't like it. God bless Yiz and everyone else who's making it happen. Nathaniel, Naderific, Jared George. We can go down the list on and on for people who are changing the world using the dialectics that matter.
Creppy K says the left will try to lump us in with these people. That is exactly correct. That is precisely correct. And the only way around that is to actively denounce these people. That's it. That's the only way you avoid that, except for the fact that conservative blue checks refuse to denounce these people. They refuse to. They refuse to even acknowledge their existence. But they call me anti-Semitic up and down after I exposed all this shit, and they chose to ignore it. So if you want these people denounced, you need to tell your conservative influencers to denounce them. I gave them every tool I could possibly give them. And because they don't like me and they think I have stupid hair and they don't like that I caught them on their bullshit, they insisted instead on lying about me and smearing me again. It's happened like 5 fucking times this year. Again. For likes and clicks and outrage and retweets and oh my God, can we be mad at her today? But in the meantime, they aren't doing shit about this. They aren't calling out any of this. That's why we have the Anti-Semitism Challenge that I'm launching today. Because I want to see if conservative blue check influencers care more about denouncing actual anti-Semitism as they do about dragging me. Let's keep going. This is Jason admitting they're going into the anti-C. I guess we're not going to get into the Keith Woods things. I did actually have clips from him, but I guess we're not going to in this article. I always forget which I put where. But here's Jason admitting. So remember, this all started back in June when I said this white well-being, white positivity movement are going into anti-CRT groups on Facebook to recruit. And conservative influencers like Ian Miles Chung decided to attack me for it and cancel Cassandra Fairbanks too. Cassandra Fairbanks' name is all over these people. That's how this started. that I said that these people were going into the anti-CRT groups on Facebook, conservative influencers decided to cancel me for it. Now here is the leader of the white well-being group admitting that I was right. That they were really bad people. That he is not aligned with the conservative movement or the Republicans or anything like that. He's not on the left or the right.
Okay, she's right there. We're not in their false spectrum. We're outside of their story.
They're a third thing.
I'm going to try to speed her up a little bit. I'm not speeding her up to make her sound bad, but because we don't have all night.
And what they're doing is they're trying to infiltrate the anti-CRT movement.
All right, we're not. She is viewing this from the position that she is the center of the universe. What a surprise. So that's why she sees it as an infiltration of the, Rory, we can have you call. How long are you going to be able to be up? Let me know. But she views it as an infiltration of the CRT movement because she thinks that she's the center of the universe. And she's not. Big surprise. Although she probably does have a lot of gravitational pull. But she views it that way. The reality is that we are combating anti-whiteism wherever it exists. So we are going to be talking about, and the great champions and the outreach teams and all of us working independently together, whatever it might be, are going to be speaking about all of this endeavor to manipulate white people into having sex with non-white people and guilting white people into having sex with non-white people. Because
they have a problem when white people have sex with non-white people. And just so we're extremely clear, when they say non-white people, they are including Jews in that.
Because they are not, they don't want to be a sexual racist or whatever it might be. So we're going to be talking about that as well. So I'm sure the people over there who are white Republicans or conservatives, or Carlin is not white, I understand. But whoever,
they say I'm not white because they think I'm Jewish. Go onto my Gab profile if you want to really see these people in action. Go onto my Gab profile and look at some of the posts from a couple months ago, and look in the comments and the replies to that. They call me a Jew. It's so funny, isn't it? Like I've got the actual anti-Semites think I'm Jewish, and conservative influencers think I'm an anti-Semite. I'm going to say that again. The conservative influencers have convinced themselves that I'm an anti-Semite because I believe that everyone has a spiritual path before they're born. Actual anti-Semites have convinced themselves that I'm Jewish. Talk about getting canceled by both sides.
Whoever they might be sitting in a gate, they're going to freak out when they see our people show up and we start teaching all of these whites who are Westmen, men and women, who are pinned up in these great big pens by Republicans, conservatives, and standing at the gates. When we show up and we begin telling them about the truth of anti-whiteism, they're going to freak out and they're going to say, oh, they're trying to infiltrate they just came into existence because we are the center of the universe. And so these folks just came into existence and now they're going to try to take over what we're doing. I mean, it really shows this solipsistic, myopic, and she does wear glasses, neuropathy. I mean, she's like neurotic. She's to view herself and this little endeavor of hers as the center of the universe, very childish.
In order to basically like recruit people to their movement. But what they're doing is they're going into anti-CRT groups on Facebook, and I have all the evidence of this. We're going to be publishing it next week, and they're trying to target people when they're afraid and
no, this verbiage right here, targeting people when they're afraid and confused. This, of course, is to mislead. This, of course, is to misrepresent. You misrepresent for some obvious reasons. So if she wanted to be legitimate, which she won't, she would be telling people what we actually say, because what we actually say she hates, but she knows that what we actually say is not enough to turn people against us, or at least to turn enough. I mean, maybe the really crazy, ass sniffing of, every poodle or boxer dog that walks down the street kind of a person, maybe that person she'll be able to turn against us, but based on what we say. But the average, even anti-white, are not going to be able to. All right, thanks, Rory. Are not going to be able to. I don't know. We might not make 30 minutes. Keep an eye on it, brother. But if not, then you're first next week. Might not be able to run them off unless she chucks in that, oh, they're targeting people who are scared and confused, and then they come in and manipulate them. So what a crock of, in other words, what we do is we show up in forums, we show up on live streams, and we share the truth. We tell people what's going. We give people our opinion. Here she says, and again, putting the lie to her position, that she's for free speech. She'll say this all. People can say whatever they want, except silence these ones. So we show up and we share our opinions in these different places. The digital town square of the 21st century. We show up there and we share our opinion. We share with the water cooler. She even talks about somewhere about hearing it in person. That's where she was hearing it at first. We're sharing our views because we're tired of being victimized. You got it?
He's right that I did hear this first in person. I heard the reason I was able to identify what these people were doing online is because I heard it first in person at an anti-CRT meeting I presented at in person. That's how I was able to identify this. This guy's name is Jason Kona, Kohne. I believe that's how it's spelled. It's in the article. He goes by, anytime you see the term no white guilt online, that's this guy. He goes by no white guilt online, NWG. He's all over the place. But this is the guy that conservatives are protecting. This is the guy that conservatives refuse to talk about. This guy right here in his well-being movement. Let's keep going. This is where Jason talks about how he's in way more groups than I thought he was in. Let's listen. At any of those things. And if you hear the phrase CRT is anti-white,
yeah,
that's coming from them.
Yes.
They admit it.
She's so right.
This is why I've always...
This is where I
know.
agree with her. When she talks about how it's coming from us and how smart we are, 100% agreement with, if I want to say, and I do want to say something, even people I don't
hubris.
Like, I want to say something nice about. So I will say that every now and again, in occasions like these, Carlin has flashes of brilliance.
Been so against using the anti-white language. They are purposefully trying to advance their ideology and their agenda by influencing language and influencing culture.
That's right. Fantastic. Another moment of brilliance.
And starting next week, we are going to start releasing information about exactly what they're doing so that all of you know exactly what to look at, because I have found them in probably a dozen different groups.
Found us in a dozen different groups. She personally.
On Facebook at this point.
Yeah.
Posting. And they post it so slickly. It's not that like they come in and they say,
we are in more than a dozen groups. And we're spreading like the curative contagion that we are.
Do you want to join a white well-being group? That's not what they do. They're taking advantage of people who are just learning about critical race theory, just getting involved.
She says they don't go in there and say, hey, do you want to get into white well-being? They go in there and they say, hey, you know what? This program, it's victimizing white people. It's anti-white. Yeah, because that's what it is.
When they say anti-white, they mean
it's white erasing us from they can look at the textbooks.
Anti-white is anti-Jew.
They can see the race of people being victimized. And then people show up, champions, real heroes show up, and then they give them concepts for what they can see with their own eyes.
Sharon says, I have been following you since February 2020 and member of your locals community since it began. Carlin has been one of the most clear thinking and articulate speakers against anti-Semitism and CRT. Thank you, Sharon. I appreciate your support. You have been there since the very beginning. I remember getting messages from you in the very, very beginning. You're a lovely member of the locals group. And my locals people know that this is all bullshit. They know. I mean, and it's like, listen, the left is eating its own right now. Conservatives are eating their own too. I used to be on their team. I used to be like, and this is part of the reason why they're so pissed at me, is I was on their team. They thought I was a right-wing grifter coming to grift on the right wing. And then I started saying, you guys are acting like idiots after the inauguration, because they did. The whole conservative movement changed after the inauguration for me. And I wanted nothing to do with how they were behaving. I think that the conservative right is acting exactly like the woke left. They're acting exactly like the woke left that I left in the first place. Now, not everyone. If you are not acting like a leftist and running around canceling people for disagreeing with you, then I'm not talking about you. But a lot of them are. And the conservative influencers absolutely are. And they don't like when I point this stuff out. Colin, thank you for the super chat. The right ignores these guys because they think acknowledging it provides attack vectors to the left. They are too cowardly to do the right thing. That is exactly right. That is exactly right. They complain about anti-Semitism and label me an anti-Semite, even though they know that's not true. Even though they know that's not true. I take it about as seriously as I take accusations of racism. But they refuse to acknowledge actual anti-Semites. They refuse, and that's what the anti-Semitism challenge is all about. I would really like just one conservative blue check that called me an anti-Semite in the last 24 hours to acknowledge actual anti-Semites. Just one. Now, as we're rounding this out, just in case we're not clear on who Jason is, this is Jason on a regular podcast that he does with David Duke and Mark Collette. David Duke is the former leader of the KKK. Mark Collette is a British neo-Nazi. This is not the only show that Jason did with them. They're on Odyssey. Go watch on Odyssey. Go watch on Odyssey. All the shows are on Odyssey because Odyssey is totally free speech. I think they're on BitChute as well. Go watch how Jason talks about the Jews. Go watch how David Duke talks about the Jews. Go watch how Mark Collette talks about the Jews. I didn't get into that a lot in this article because I was focusing on their impact on the anti-CRT movement. But don't tell me that you care about anti-Semitism when you're making the choice, Siraj, to call out me for saying, I believe that everyone chooses a spiritual path before they're born. But you're not calling out this bullshit. Because you're a coward. You are a coward. Ian Miles Chung is a coward. Jason, what the fuck is that Jason guy's name? I don't even know. Jason Bedrick is a coward. Every single conservative blue check or influencer or anyone with any platform that chose to label me an anti-Semite when I have handed all of you actual anti-Semites on a silver fucking platter and you did nothing with it. You are cowards. Why do you need a liberal white woman from New Hampshire to do your dirty work for you? Why aren't you going to find your balls and do it yourself? Because they don't really care about anti-Semitism. That's the answer. That's the answer. If any conservative actually cares about anti-Semitism, then they are more than welcome to take the anti-Semitism challenge and share this information out to their communities and unequivocally denounce anyone who uses the anti-white terminology. They are welcome to do that because the term anti-white is an inherently anti-Semitic term, as I have already proved in this stream. And if they do not do that, then the only thing that we can conclude is that they don't really care about anti-Semitism and all they care about is outrage and likes and clicks and forming little outrage mobs and canceling people like woke leftist SJWs. It's really that simple, guys. It's really that simple. Christian, I would rather not say because I don't want to lead people there, but I will DM the information to you on Twitter. But it's all over Odyssey. Like, let's look up Mark Collette. It's all over Odyssey. If death isn't predetermined, then I'm completely wrong and no one suffers anything. So if I'm wrong, like, nothing happens. Can I disagree with everyone? Carlin is not an anti-Semite and anti-white is only an... No. Anti-white is always anti-Semitic. They use the term Jew as an insult. They use the term Jew as a pejorative. They call people Jews when they're trying to discredit them. All of that is anti-Semitic. They do not, you know? Caleb says they basically only want you when you expose the CRT stuff and then discard you like an empty soda can when you're inconvenient to them. It's a shame that they can't see the bigger picture. That's exactly right. These people, like, I got to tell you guys, here, I'm going to come on the big screen. I feel so used by the conservative right. I really do. My goal in talking publicly about my experiences and my perspectives was never to evangelize for conservatism. It was to tell the truth. It was to tell the truth. And to live an authentic experience that people could see and maybe find inspiration from if they so chose. I have been used repeatedly by the conservative right. And then as soon as the inauguration happened and they didn't get the result that they want, and I started saying you're becoming like the woke left that I left in the first place, because they are. I begged them not to do this. I posted you guys can go back and look. I posted a video on election day, the day after election day. I think it was the day after. In a swimming pool in Florida, where I said to the right, please do not become the monsters you're fighting. No matter what happens, please do not become the monsters you're fighting. I have watched them over the past years slowly become the monsters they were fighting. Now, I'm not the only person they do this to. They do this to a lot of people. Anyone who does not spout blatantly conservative talking points, they will do this to. And that's not a reflection of actual conservatives, right? I'm talking about the influencers. I'm talking about the people who make a lot of money speaking talking points that people want to hear. I have no issue with normal conservatives who think that everything that I just showed you is wrong. I have no issue with them. What I have an issue with is people who are out to destroy it. This is the exact same. This is the reason I spoke up in the knitting community to begin with. My issue is not with people I disagree with. My issue is with people who get off on trying to destroy the lives of other people purely for fun, for kicks, and have no principles that they actually stand for. The woke left has no principles. They have no principles at all whatsoever. Their principles depend entirely on what is convenient for them at the time. Conservative influencers are the same way. Not all of them, a lot of them. So, the anti-Semitism challenge that I'm launching today is I would like to see just one blue check conservative influencer share information about actual anti-Semites. And you don't you can share other information about actual anti-Semitism if you like, but I have handed you on a silver platter all of the examples that you could ever need, conservative blue checks. And so if you actually care about anti-Semitism, the spread of anti-Semitism, protecting Israel, then you will share information that shows precisely who the anti-Semites are and precisely what they actually want. Otherwise, you are no different than woke leftists who run around calling everyone they disagree with a racist. Being called an anti-Semite by the conservatives doesn't mean anything more to me than being called a racist by the woke left. It is exactly the same, and it is all the evidence you need that the conservative right is turning into the monster that they are fighting. I've been watching this happen all year. I have warned that this is happening. And the reason that they cancel me is because I keep exposing their bullshit. Call me an anti-Semite. My actions are always clear. My views are incredibly consistent. You won't even call out real anti-Semitism, and so if you refuse to call out real anti-Semitism, Siraj, with your Jewish wife, if you refuse to call out real anti-Semitism, then the only conclusion that we can come to is that you get off on feeding people's outrage addictions, that you care more about feeding an outrage addiction than you do about doing the right thing. You're the one who has to live with yourself. You're the one who has to look in the mirror. And now they're going to go on Twitter and they're going to cut things out of context and be like, oh my God, she's unhinged. Someone do a wellness check. Because you all know that I deeply respect and value psychological diagnoses made on Twitter by people who have never spoken to me in real life and are only seeking to harm me. I'm not going anywhere, guys. Not locking my account. Not deleting tweets. And I'll just continue to expose you for exactly what you are. Outrage junkies that are only interested in outraging your audience so you get likes and clicks, because that is the only meaning that you have in your sad little lives. And you can make fun of my spiritual beliefs all you want, but my spiritual beliefs give me more meaning than Twitter gives you. My spiritual beliefs are the reason I'm not hunkered down in a corner crying every single time you fuckers lie about me and smear me on the internet for how God knows how many people to see. Raging hypocrites, the lot of you. I'm speaking to blue check conservatives now, not anyone watching. Because God knows they're not going to watch this. God knows they're not going to watch this. All right, guys, I got to go pretty soon because I've got a meeting with Joshua in about half an hour. But if anyone has any questions that they would like me to answer about this group or anything else, I will be absolutely happy to do it. Chat them in. And let's see what you guys have to say. Yeah, Paula, I post videos almost every single day. So if you don't get notified of videos, that happens on YouTube. Just check back. You could also join my locals community where you will see it. You'll see all my videos. It's true. Zach says establishment love calling people anti-Semites is their version of the woke left's Nazi. It totally is. Murphy, I have never felt more politically homeless. Well, actually, no, that's not true because again, this started back in June. This is not even new for me. This is an extension of the cancellation that happened back in June. Carlin, you're right. You have been used by the conservative right. They're all about go along to get along. It makes me so sad. But I am happy that I figured it out early because you guys don't understand. Like when you're in it, it's like a different thing, right? It's different than viewing it from the outside. So I am glad that I figured it out early. I am glad I found the Mises Caucus and the Libertarians. I genuinely love the Mises Caucus and the Libertarians. I really do. I love them. And so I'm glad I found them. I found my political home. You know, we're never going to win anything, but that's okay. That's okay because I think that they're fighting for better reasons. Than I see, again, not average conservatives, but like the influencers, dude. They have internalized the algorithm, isn't it true? Sharon said, I would be proud to attest that Carlin's bona fides are not an anti-Semite. I have published politically conservative Jewish magazines and wrote about, I wrote about real anti-Semites. And this is the thing, is like, I spent weeks researching these people, and these are the guys. The stuff I showed you is not even the worst stuff. The stuff that I showed you is the tamest possible stuff I could have shown you. It's not even the really bad stuff. And so to be called an anti-Semite after seeing what I've seen and seeing conservatives do nothing about it, and forget the woke left. The woke left don't talk about this stuff either. They're exactly the same. I'll call the woke left out too. The woke left are just as hypocritical. But I expect that. I hold them to a different standard. They're unhinged, crazy people. But I'll say it too. Hey, does any woke leftist want to share actual information of actual anti-Semitism or actual racism? Do you guys want to share too? You guys, the woke left is totally welcome to participate in the anti-Semitism challenge every day of the week. I'm not a Democrat. Not anymore. Nura said, I'm Jewish. I listen to Carlin very often, and never have I noticed any ounce of anti-Semitism. Funny how that works, isn't it? Funny how that works. No, there's no difference. I'm sorry, Zach. I'm sorry. I know it seems like there might be, but there's not. There's really not. Caleb says, how is all this nonsense spent on you mentally? To be really blunt, not as bad as you might think, because like it was really bad in June. It was like really bad in June. It was really effing bad. And you guys can go back and watch the videos. I haven't taken anything down. You guys can go back and watch the videos. It was really bad in June. But what happened in it being really bad in June was that I'm like essentially inoculated to all this stuff now. Because not only was it really bad in June, but then I went down the actual white supremacy rabbit hole. I am inoculated to all woke bullshit now. And so, like, when this started happening yesterday and I was seeing it, I was like literally laughing about it. I was like, this is insane. These people are insane. How could I possibly internalize any of it? How could I possibly take seriously people who make psychological diagnoses based on tweets when they've never had a conversation with me in real life? That just makes no sense. And so, not as bad as people think. There's some other stuff going on in my life that's not fun. That's actually significantly worse than this nonsense. But I'm gonna call these people out because I think it's important to call them out on their bullshit. Yeah, Mises Caucus. Yes, I agree with this. The woke left are actual anti-Semites. Yes, they want to bomb Israel. Oh, I've got so many woke leftists. You're an anti-Semite. You're an anti. Like the woke. I'm not trying to make it out like there's only there was. It started with conservatives. It started with conservatives yesterday, but then Vosh got involved with it. That asshole. And so then leftists started coming into my feed. So it's both now. But yeah, like leftists are the most anti-Semitic people on the planet. Most anti-Semitic people on the planet. It's crazy. Like, how can you actually advocate for Israel not existing and then call someone else an anti-Semite? I'm sorry. You don't want to see the really bad stuff. You don't want to see it. Trust me. It's really not good. Boris, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Jenny's getting inky with it, said, watch since Prager video and you've been pretty consistent with your message and pretty center of the road. People who have issues with you have control issues. I have been incredibly consistent with my message. My views haven't changed. My views have not changed well, that's not true. That's not true. I won't say that. I have gotten far more accelerationist in terms of like defunding the public schools and in terms of like getting the government out of my business. I have become I'm slowly teetering towards anarchy. I'm getting there. Not there yet. But most of my views haven't really changed. All right, guys, that's all I have. I don't see any more chats coming in. So thank you for spending some time with me. Please encourage your conservative blue check influencers, especially that Siraj jackass, to take the anti-Semitism challenge. They can think I'm insane all they want. And here's the thing. You are welcome, conservatives, you are welcome to think I'm insane. But can we at the same time expose actual anti-Semitism, please? Can we, at the same time as you think I'm insane, can we actually give people information that they need in order to navigate this space that we are in? And if any of you wants to pay for me to have a psychological evaluation done, I will do it. I will make those results public. I'll do it. I'm not even joking. I'm a psychologist. You think I don't know what it's going to say? Please. Please. But if any of you want to actually pay for a like Jason, and when I say Jason, let me show you who I'm talking about. I'm talking about this guy who said that this guy is such a good Jew that he refuses to share actual anti-Semitic information because I'm a lunatic. Jason, policy director at EdChoice. You want to pay for me to have a psychological evaluation? I'll make it public. Let's see you put your money where your mouth is. Or you could just go after actual anti-Semites. If you care so deeply, Jason, you could just do that. All right, guys. That's all I have. The anti-Semitism challenge is on. I firmly believe that there will be absolutely no blue check takers who actually care about exposing actual anti-Semitism, but I could be wrong, and I am open to being wrong, and I hope that I am. If you enjoy me calling out grifting conservative blue check influencers who are only interested in drumming up outrage because it keeps them relevant, please make sure you subscribe to my channel. I do content almost every single day of the week around news, politics, culture, really focusing on social justice and of course, calling out the bullshit anywhere I see it. If you enjoyed this stream, please mount that like button on the way out the door. I may have some more videos later, but I got to go talk to Joshua for right now for the next couple hours. Take care, guys. We'll see you soon.